So welcome again to Pete's Workshop. We've been focusing on open source tools on IBMI, taking a look at what's available, and actually the original idea I had in mind for this video was to go through building a Python app to do some web page scraping. We were going to walk some of the developer tools, developer works website pages, and kind of pull those in. But in wanting to get there, I tripped across a couple of problems. So I'm going to show you that. We're going to walk through how to go about solving that problem if you happen to run into it, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you. Um, the first place that I discovered this issue was I went into Client Access Solutions because I was going to add a couple of more open source packages to my IBMI. And if you recall or not, haven't been on here before, the whole purpose here was I've got a brand new IBMI, and just as I go here, I'm going to add tools, building kind of incrementally. You're going to see warts and all. This is not one of those super prepared, not real world, because it's been kind of curated and practiced a dozen times. Nope, we're jumping in directly. But it run into this snag, and I want to share it with you in case you run into it. So my first indication that I had a problem was I went to the open source package management, which takes you into SSH. I'm going to sign in here. And this is what I saw. Wow, this wonderful little error message that they couldn't open up the rpmdb. And just again, as an aside, if you happen to run into you're opening up iAccess Client Solutions, you cannot find that option, the open source package management. Just check your version. This one is 1161, which does not have the open source package management in it, even though it is my recent IBMI. You'll have to upgrade, and here's my second instance of it. This guy has 1182. So again, if you don't see the open source package management in iAccess Client Solutions, then go ahead and upgrade your iAccess app. So anyway, so got started there, ran into that error, and really the only thing I can recall doing, there was actually two. One of them is that I put on the latest QUME for V7R. V7R4, 7.4 IBMI. And only other thing that happened is that we had a power outage long enough that the UPS didn't stay up and the system dropped. So I don't know if in that process somehow the files got corrupted, but basically that's what I ended up with. So do a quick search on the internet, and I come across this knowledge base article, common issues in troubleshooting for yum command. Okay, so cool, no problem. It talks about running some yum commands, but here's the error message that I was seeing, and that's why this particular page was found by my friend Google. So yeah, I decided let's check this out. So in order to get to the IBMI, let's take a quick look here. Jump in again. I'm using PuTTY as my SSH client. Sign in. And so one of the commands that they were talking about using was yum. Let me jump over to bash here. And let's just run the yum command, which isn't found. It also references, after we delete these database artifacts, which lists here, is to run rpm rebuild. So, I'm always paranoid about stuff, so I just want to make sure I've got the right commands available to me. So rpm, oh boy, don't have that either. So let's just see what is in the path. So looking at this, there is nothing in the path that would give me an indication that I've got RPM or Yum. So really a quick way to look for it is to do a find. I'm going to start in that folder. Always a good place to go, the Q open source or OpenSys folder. In fact, let's just start there. Search by name, look for RPM. Okay, so it does find it, actually finds several. And here's kind of where I ended up. Don't know if this is correct or not. My assumption is that the open source, the QOpenSys packages bin folder, I think should be in the path, and it's not. So we could add it to the path manually here. But I decided, again, we've got a brand new IBM I here, that I would go ahead and add that path so that when I signed in, then it occurred to me as well. As you can see, I first started in the corn shell and then added bash to start bash. So I'd like to do that kind of without having to add the bash command at the command line. So we're just going to create a way of doing that. One of the ways to do that is to go ahead and create a profile file that actually contains some of the commands that when you sign in are executed before your SSH, your shell, is presented to you. So this is, there's two ways to go about it. One of them is that you can just go ahead and do VI, and the next thing I'm going to do once I get this fixed is I'm going to add Nano, which is my favorite editor. But VI, create a profile, and by default, right now, if you look at PWD, we're in my default folder, home folder. So it's a good place to create your profile. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so there's nothing in there right now, and I hate VI, to be honest with you. It's just a really clunky, difficult. So I do have a profile from earlier, and I could copy all of this and then just throw it into VI. And of course, VI is just a funky pattern not found. So what I'm going to do, and again, this is one of the reasons that I really don't like VI, is that it gets clunky. I'm not going to save it. I'm going to take the upbeat approach here, and quick and dirty is to use a different editor, which is my preference. This is, of course, as you can see, I'm going into a map network drive in Windows, which some people would oppose as for many reasons, but whatever. And hang on here, you got to create it. I'm going to done with it. I'm going to do a right quit, and then we're going to let's go ahead and open this guy. Then I'm going to grab this guy. Windows is really cranky about just a dot in a file name. So we got all that taken care of. We're going to save this guy. Now we have a profile file that will get loaded at sign in. So let's go ahead and exit out of here. And notice that we're jumping out of the bash shell back into the corn shell and then all the way out. So let's go back in now. Okay, so the good news here is a couple. First thing is we're in the bash shell right away. Second of all, if we echo the path statement, which was, and you can see now we have that in the path. Now, whether or not that's the right way to go about solving this problem, I don't know. I'm kind of a seat of the pants, kind of make it work kind of guy. I'll probably post something on mid-range just to make sure I'm doing it the right way, because there could be a better way to get all of those artifacts reestablished. However, that does not fix my problem. So here's what's going on in that profile. We're adding the QOpenSys packages bin file to the existing path, and then we're exporting that so it's available. This little ditty here is actually something I discovered on Stack Overflow, put together by Aaron Bartel, who's not as engaged in the IBMI community anymore, but still left a great trail of suggestions behind him. And so this just allows us to detect what's going on and to add bash as our shell as we start up. That's about all there is to it. So the question is, did that solve my problem? So I can type in yum, and there's a list of installs, I think. And you'll see there's that DB error. That pretty much points back to this guy, this article that we found that has to do with the yum. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and we're going to find, first of all, I'm going to find these guys. You can see them actually if you do an ls on the here. Just steal that path real quick. Grab the way down to the RPMs. Probably just do it faster on the command line. Do this ls -l. Type that in there. You can see those DB files down here, and there's an indication from that prior error that we have an issue. Can't open the index, invalid argument, can't open packages database. So I'm going to assume, it's always a dangerous thing, that these guys are actually the problem. So it says that I can go ahead, delete the files, rebuild that file, and then hopefully we'll see if that takes care of the problem. So here's what we're going to do. The remove, R is recursive and F is force. So that's what that minus RF means. And it's just going to find those files. So let's go ahead and get rid of it. Now let's once again list it. And you can see that those database files are now missing. And we'll just go ahead and rebuild using the RPM command now. Okay. And let's see. As far as I could tell, all is well now. So let's go back here. Give it a whirl. You never know. This is live TV, folks. Gonna get in there, or we're gonna get this thing built. Sweet. Okay, so this is exactly what we were after originally, just to see what was installed. I was going to show you what we did have installed. These are the available packages, and they may or may not have what I need when I'm building this Python app, so that's kind of what we'll walk through as we go. This guy, though, definitely want this guy. Nano is my favorite. It's my favorite editor. So you're going to see this whenever you install packages. They all have dependencies on other packages, and fortunately, our RPM command is smart enough. The yum command is smart enough to understand what dependencies need to be there. Actually, those are defined in the files that are referenced, and so it's smart enough to go out and grab all of those additional dependencies and get them installed along with your base. So in this case, I wanted to get Nano installed, and that's pretty sweet that it's that simple. Let's jump back here. Let's see if it's there. Oh, this is my favorite editor. This is so easy to use. So anyway, so let's stop there because this was the problem I wanted to solve initially, just to get this guy up and running. And then what we'll take a look at next is actually building this Python app that's going to go out, and it's basically a web crawler. Going to go out and scrape some sites. We're going to grab some content, and I'll show you how to build that Python app in the next video. And as always, I really appreciate you paying attention, jumping in here, and I really encourage you to try whatever you want on IBM in open source in the open source environment. There's just so much there to play with. Thanks for tuning in.